The boardroom was an unforgiving place, its sleek walls and polished tables echoing the ambitions and failures of many who had come before me. I had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, often sacrificing my personal life for the sake of success. Yet, standing there that day, I felt a surge of confidence wash over me. I was about to present my proposal for a new project that could revolutionize our company, and I was determined to make my mark. As I glanced around the room, my eyes landed on him, Daniel Marquez, the billionaire CEO whose presence commanded attention. He leaned back in his chair, exuding an air of authority that made the atmosphere electric. His dark hair was tousled just enough to give him an air of casual sophistication, and his deep-set eyes seemed to pierce through the facade I had carefully constructed. I had always admired him from afar, but today felt different. Today, I was ready to show him who I really was. I cleared my throat, my pulse quickening. Daniel had a reputation for being ruthless, but I had spent countless nights crafting this proposal, pouring my heart and soul into every detail. I wanted more than just his approval. I wanted him to see me as more than just a cog in the corporate machine. As I began my presentation, I poured every ounce of passion into my words, weaving a narrative that I hoped would resonate with him. I noticed him leaning forward, a flicker of interest igniting in his eyes. For a moment, the room faded away, and it felt like it was just the two of us, locked in an unspoken connection. But then, as I concluded my pitch, the moment shattered. A rival executive, Mark, interjected with a condescending smirk, undermining my work with a few dismissive comments. I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment as I glanced at Daniel, hoping for a sign of support. Instead, he simply nodded at Mark, his eyes betraying nothing. In that instant, my heart sank. I had poured everything into this moment, only to be dismissed so easily. I fought to keep my composure, but I could feel the weight of disappointment settling heavily on my shoulders. The meeting ended with a predictable conclusion. My proposal was shelved, and Mark's project would move forward. I gathered my things and exited the boardroom, the echo of laughter from my colleagues following me like a haunting refrain. I had thought I could impress Daniel, that I could carve out a space for myself in his world, but instead, I felt smaller than ever. As I walked down the sterile hallways, I tried to shake off the feeling of inadequacy that clung to me like a shadow. Later that evening, I found myself in my small apartment, the city lights twinkling through my window like stars in a sky I couldn't reach. I had always believed that hard work would pay off, that if I just kept pushing forward, I would eventually earn my place among the elite. But tonight, doubt clawed at me. Had I misjudged my own capabilities? Was I truly destined to remain in the background, forever overshadowed by more charismatic figures like Daniel? My phone buzzed, breaking my reverie. It was a message from my best friend Sarah, asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I hesitated, wanting to wallow in my disappointment, but something urged me to accept. As I arrived at our favorite restaurant, the comforting smell of Italian cuisine enveloped me. Sarah greeted me with her usual enthusiasm, her vibrant energy a stark contrast to my mood. We settled into a booth, and as she talked about her day, I found myself zoning out, my mind still reeling from the boardroom debacle. I could feel the weight of my unfulfilled dreams pressing down on me, and the laughter around us felt like a distant echo. Sarah noticed my distraction and leaned in, concern etched on her face. I couldn't hide the truth any longer. I had to tell her about Daniel and how I had thought that maybe, just maybe, I could capture his attention. As I spoke, the words tumbled out of me, raw and unfiltered, and I could see the wheels turning in Sarah's mind. "You really thought you could impress him?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "He's a billionaire and you're just... you." Her voice was gentle, but the sting of her words hung in the air like a bitter taste. "I know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. But it wasn't just about impressing him. I wanted to show him that I could be more than just another face in the crowd. I believed in my proposal. I thought it mattered. The vulnerability in my tone caught Sarah off guard, and she reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Sweetheart, you are so much more than what they see in that boardroom. You've worked hard, and you have so much to offer. Just because one person didn't recognize your worth doesn't mean it's not there, she reassured me, her eyes shining with sincerity. But deep down, I felt like a ghost lingering in the shadows of my own life. Daniel had always been a distant star, a figure who seemed to shimmer just out of reach. I had fantasized about what it would be like if he looked my way, if he saw the real me, the one who had dreams and aspirations that went beyond the confines of the corporate world. I wanted him to see that I was more than just a number in a spreadsheet. I was a person with passion, creativity, and potential. As we shared a plate of pasta, I found it hard to shake the image of Daniel's impassive expression from my mind. I had believed that my voice could resonate with him, that my ideas could inspire him, but instead, I had been met with indifference, and a part of me felt like I'd been stripped bare, left vulnerable and exposed. Maybe you should confront him, Sarah suggested, her brows knitted together in thought. Show him that you're not just going to fade into the background. You deserve to be heard. Confront him? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. How could I muster the courage to face someone who had turned my aspirations into dust? But deep inside, a flicker of defiance ignited. Perhaps Sarah was right. If I wanted to be seen, I needed to step out from the shadows. As the night wore on, I felt a glimmer of resolve building within me. I couldn't let one setback define my worth, nor could I allow Daniel's indifference to extinguish the fire I had inside. I would find a way to make my voice heard, even if it meant taking risks. I had to believe that I was capable of more than what the boardroom reflected. After dinner, as we walked through the bustling streets, the city alive with energy, I took a deep breath. The world felt expansive, filled with possibilities that were waiting for me to grasp. I could either let my fear hold me back or use it as fuel to propel myself forward. My heart raced at the thought of confronting Daniel, but I knew I had to try, for my own sake. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, my voice steadier now. "I think I know what I have to do." As we parted ways, I felt a newfound strength within me. I was ready to face Daniel again, ready to show him the woman behind the proposals, the dreams, and the ambition. I wanted to be seen, not just by him, but by everyone who had ever underestimated me. And who knows? Maybe this time, I wouldn't just be another name in the corporate world. I would be the one he could never forget. If you're feeling inspired by this journey of courage and resilience, I'd love for you to subscribe and join me as I navigate this wild ride. And please, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's lift each other up on this path to finding our true selves. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of determination coursing through my veins. The sun streamed through my window, illuminating a path forward, and for the first time in a long time, I felt excited about the day ahead. As I got ready, my reflection in the mirror seemed different, stronger, more confident. I tugged at my blouse, smoothing down the fabric, a small act that grounded me in my resolve. Today would be the day I would confront Daniel. I arrived at the office, the familiar hum of activity buzzing around me, but the air felt charged with anticipation. My heart raced as I walked past the glass-walled conference rooms, each one a reminder of the power dynamics at play. I took a deep breath and headed to my desk, the weight of the proposal I had worked on still pressing heavily on my mind. It was time to breathe life into those words again, to reclaim my narrative. As the clock inched closer to noon, I rehearsed what I would say to him. I could picture Daniel, his sharp suit contrasting with the casual attire I wore, standing there with that infuriatingly composed demeanor. I could feel the nervous energy bubbling inside me, but I kept pushing it down, reminding myself of Sarah's words. I was more than just a face in the crowd. Finally, I gathered my courage, straightened my posture, and made my way to his office. The door loomed before me, and I hesitated for a split second, my heart pounding. But then I remembered all the reasons why I needed to do this. I knocked softly, and a deep voice called out, "Come in." As I stepped into his office, I felt the weight of his gaze on me. Daniel looked up from his computer, his expression shifting from surprise to curiosity. "What can I do for you?" he asked, his tone neutral but with an underlying hint of interest. I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "I wanted to talk about the proposal I presented," I began. my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "I know you didn't see its potential, but I believe in it. I believe in what I can bring to this company." He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, a skeptical expression etched on his face. "I remember," he replied, his gaze piercing through me. "But you have to understand. I have to prioritize what's best for the company." The coldness in his voice stung, but I pressed on. "I understand that, but it's also about vision, about seeing beyond the numbers. I'm not just here to fill a role. I want to contribute meaningfully. You once told me you valued innovation, but how can we achieve that if we stick to the same old formulas?" A flicker of surprise crossed his features, and for a moment, I saw the man who inspired so many, the visionary leader I had admired from afar. "You're passionate," he acknowledged, his tone softening slightly. "But passion alone doesn't drive results." "True," I replied, my voice gaining strength, "but results come from fresh perspectives. I want to show you that I can be that fresh perspective. I want to be part of something bigger, not just another cog in the machine." For a moment, silence hung between us, heavy and charged. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, the conflict of his typical decisiveness battling with the unexpected weight of my words. "I never thought you'd come to me like this," he finally said, a hint of admiration creeping into his voice. "Most people don't challenge me directly. Maybe they're afraid," I said, my heart racing. "But I'm willing to take that risk. I want to prove that I can bring something valuable to the table." His gaze lingered on me, and I could sense the shift in the air, the moment where possibilities began to spark between us. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about recognition, about being seen for who I truly was, a woman with ambition, dreams, and the courage to fight for them. And in that moment, I realized that this confrontation was not just about him or the proposal. It was about reclaiming my place in a world that had tried to overshadow me. As I stood there, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. Whatever the outcome, I had taken a step toward my truth, and that alone was worth fighting for. As I stood in his office, the air thick with unspoken words, I could feel the tension between us shifting. Daniel's gaze was intense, almost as if he were peeling back the layers of my resolve to find the vulnerable heart beneath. I had never seen him look at anyone with such scrutiny, and it was both exhilarating and terrifying. I knew I was stepping into uncharted territory, but there was a spark igniting within me, urging me to press on. "Why do you care so much?" he asked, his voice low and measured. "Why this proposal? And why now?" I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. "Because it's not just about the proposal," I finally said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's about proving to myself that I am more than what you or anyone else thinks of me. I want to break the mold." His expression softened for the briefest moment, and I could see a flicker of something, recognition perhaps, a connection that transcended the business world we operated in. But then, the wall came crashing down again, and I could sense his defenses rising. "You need to understand that this company has a way of doing things," he replied, the edge returning to his tone. "It's not personal. It's just how we operate." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to retreat into the comfort of my previous self. "But isn't that exactly the problem?" I challenged, my voice gaining momentum. "If you're always doing things the same way, how will you ever grow? How will you ever innovate? You talk about wanting to be a leader in the industry, but you're holding back the very people who are passionate about it." He leaned forward, his interest piqued. "And what makes you think you're one of those people?" "Because I see things differently," I replied, my breath hitching in my throat. "I have ideas. I have a vision. I've worked hard to get here, and I refuse to let anyone tell me I don't belong." A silence enveloped us after my outburst, and I could feel the weight of my words hanging in the air like a tangible force. Daniel's eyes searched mine, and for a fleeting moment, I thought he might actually see me, the real me, not just an employee seeking approval. "Maybe you're right," he said slowly, considering my words as if they were a puzzle he was trying to solve. "But it's not just about passion. It's about results, and you have to be able to deliver." "I can deliver," I insisted, my voice steady. "Just give me the chance." I can turn this proposal into something that could change everything." He studied me, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone shifting to something softer, almost vulnerable. "What do you really want?" I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment crashing down around me. "I want to be recognized. I want to be valued for what I bring to the table. I want to be more than just a name on a spreadsheet or a face in a crowd. I want you to see me." As those words left my lips, I realized how true they were. I had spent so long feeling invisible, and yet here I was, baring my soul to a man who had once seemed so untouchable. In that moment of honesty, I stripped away the layers of pretense, allowing my vulnerability to shine through. Daniel's expression shifted again, and I could see the conflict warring within him. "You think you can just challenge me and expect everything to change?" I nodded, my heart racing. "Yes, I do. Because sometimes the most unexpected challenges lead to the greatest breakthroughs. Sometimes you have to shake things up to find out what you're truly capable of." For a heartbeat, the world outside faded away, and it was just the two of us, standing on the precipice of change. I could feel the air crackling with possibility, the space between us shifting from adversarial to something deeper, something charged with unspoken emotions. But then, as quickly as it had come, the moment dissipated, and the cool veneer of his professional facade returned. "I appreciate your passion, but I still need to think about this," he said, his voice steady, but I could sense the hesitation lurking beneath the surface. As I turned to leave, a flicker of hope ignited within me. I had stepped into the lion's den, and although I didn't know what the outcome would be, I felt a shift in the air, a promise of something more than just business. It was a promise of recognition, of understanding, and perhaps, just perhaps, the beginning of a connection that could change everything. As I walked out of his office, my heart raced with a mixture of hope and anxiety. The boldness of my words hung in the air like a delicate thread, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a threshold. The coolness of the hallway contrasted sharply with the heat of our conversation. Each step felt like a leap into an unknown future, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had finally found a way to break through his carefully constructed defenses. The atmosphere of the office was suffocating, filled with ambition and unyielding expectations. Yet somehow, Daniel's gaze had allowed a flicker of vulnerability to emerge. I replayed our exchange in my mind, the way his brow had furrowed in thought, the way he had leaned in as if he was genuinely considering my perspective. It made me question everything I thought I knew about him. The billionaire CEO, the untouchable figure, was perhaps more human than I had ever imagined. I returned to my desk, my mind swirling with possibilities. What if Daniel really did see me? What if he was just waiting for someone to spark the change he desperately needed? I had always dreamed of making a difference in my career, but now it felt more personal. I wanted him to see my worth, not just as an employee, but as a person with dreams and ambitions that stretched far beyond the confines of this company. Days turned into weeks, and I settled into a rhythm of anticipation and uncertainty. I poured my heart into the proposal, refining every detail, driven by the hope that Daniel would recognize the potential I had tried so hard to uncover. Each late night spent perfecting my work felt like a tribute to the connection we had almost forged. I could feel his presence in every aspect of my work, and it both fueled and terrified me. One afternoon, as I was lost in thought, I received an unexpected message. It was from Daniel, inviting me to meet him again, this time off-site. My heart leaped at the thought. The casual setting of a cafe might offer a chance for candor, a space where the weight of titles could dissipate. As I prepared to leave, I was acutely aware of how much was riding on this meeting. When I arrived, the cafe buzzed with energy, but all I could focus on was the sight of him waiting at a corner table, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. There was an intensity in his gaze that made my heart flutter. He stood as I approached, a flicker of warmth breaking through his usual stoic demeanor. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing for me to sit. I could see the slightest hint of vulnerability in his posture, the way he shifted in his seat as if unsure of how to begin. "I wanted to talk about your proposal," he said after a moment, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of something deeper. "I've been thinking about what you said, about challenging the status quo." I held my breath, my pulse quickening. And I think it's time for a change," he replied, his eyes locking onto mine. "I want to give you the opportunity to lead this initiative, but I also need you to understand that it won't be easy. There will be resistance, and you'll need to be prepared for that." His words ignited a fire within me, a powerful blend of excitement and fear. "I can handle it," I assured him, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside. "I believe in this. I believe in us." At that moment, something shifted in the air between us. The boundaries that had once defined our relationship began to dissolve, and I could see him grappling with the same emotions that had surged within me. He was more than just the CEO. He was a man who had been forged by the very challenges I sought to embrace. As we discussed the details of the proposal, the conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and genuine connection. I felt a warmth spreading through me, a sense of belonging that I had longed for since stepping into this world. In the midst of our discussion, I couldn't help but wonder if he could sense the depth of my feelings for him. The way he listened, the way he challenged me, all hinted at something more profound beneath the surface. I wanted to believe that he could see me for who I truly was, a passionate woman ready to fight for her dreams, someone who could change not only the company, but also his life. By the time we wrapped up our meeting, I felt invigorated, as though I had crossed a bridge into a new reality where anything was possible. As I stood to leave, Daniel reached out, his hand brushing against mine, and in that fleeting moment, I felt a connection that went beyond words. "Thank you for believing in this," he said softly, his gaze penetrating, "and for believing in me." As I walked away from him that day, I felt an overwhelming sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we were both on the brink of discovering something extraordinary, not just for ourselves, but for each other. I invite you to share your own stories of unexpected connections and breakthroughs. What moments changed everything for you? What challenges ignited your passion? Let's create a tapestry of our experiences together in the comments. And if you have themes you want to explore further, I would love to hear those too. The days that followed our meeting were a whirlwind of excitement and trepidation. I threw myself into the project with a fervor that surprised even me. Daniel's belief in my capabilities felt like a spark that ignited a fire within my soul. Each late night in the office was a chance to prove not just my worth to him, but to myself. I wanted to show him that I could rise to the occasion, that I was not just a cog in the machine, but someone who could drive change. But amidst the thrill of this new responsibility, a gnawing worry crept in. What if he only saw me as an employee? What if our connection was merely a fleeting moment, a blip in his otherwise meticulously structured life? I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the project, the vision we had crafted together. I envisioned our ideas taking shape, transforming the company, and perhaps transforming our relationship as well. One evening, after spending hours fine-tuning the presentation, I decided to step away from my desk. I needed a moment to breathe, to gather my thoughts. The weather outside was crisp, the kind of evening that invited introspection. As I walked through the city streets, the twinkling lights and the sounds of laughter filled the air, but my heart felt heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Then, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. It was a message from Daniel, asking if I wanted to meet again, this time to discuss the next steps for our initiative. My heart raced at the thought. Each interaction with him was like a dance on the edge of something beautiful yet terrifying. I quickly replied, eager to see him again. The following day, I arrived at the office early, my mind racing with possibilities. I wanted to impress him, to show him how serious I was about this project and about us. When Daniel entered the conference room, the air changed, as if the room itself recognized his presence. He was impeccably dressed, as always, but there was something different today, an eagerness in his eyes that made my heart skip a beat. "Let's dive into this," he said, his voice steady, but there was an undercurrent of excitement. As we went through the presentation, I could see him leaning in, engaged, genuinely interested in my ideas. We exchanged thoughts, and for the first time, it felt like a true partnership. I could see the gears turning in his mind, and it only fueled my passion further. "Your vision is bold," he said, his voice low, as if he was sharing a secret. "I believe it can work, but—" He paused, searching for the right words. "But I need to know if you're ready for the backlash. You are challenging a lot of entrenched ideas here." "I am ready," I replied, my voice unwavering. "I've never felt more alive than I do right now. I know this is what I'm meant to do." His gaze held mine for a moment longer than necessary, and I felt a rush of emotions surge between us. There was a longing there, an unspoken connection that felt electric. I could sense the pull, the gravity of what was happening, and it terrified and exhilarated me all at once. As the meeting wrapped up, Daniel's expression softened. "I appreciate your passion. It's rare to find someone who truly believes in their vision." "Thank you for giving me this chance," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. He stood up, and as he moved closer, I felt my breath hitch. "We're in this together now," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I want you to know that I see you, truly see you." In that moment, everything felt amplified. The way he looked at me, the way his presence enveloped me. I wanted to reach out, to close the distance between us, to share my heart and all the feelings I had kept tucked away, but I hesitated, caught between the fear of crossing a line and the desire to leap into the unknown. As I left the conference room, my mind swirled with possibilities. We were embarking on a journey that could change everything, and yet, the weight of the past loomed over me. Daniel had made mistakes, had betrayed trust in the business world, but here we were, standing on the precipice of something new. I had to remind myself that this was not just about the company. It was about us. I needed to navigate this carefully, to find a way to bridge the gap between who he was and who I believed he could become. And as I walked away, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe, just maybe, we were both ready to face the challenges ahead, not just as colleagues, but as something far more profound. The days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, the tension between Daniel and me grew thicker, more palpable. It was as if an invisible thread connected us, one that could either pull taut and snap or weave us closer together. I immersed myself in the project, pouring every ounce of my energy into it. But no matter how much I achieved professionally, my heart remained in a state of flux. Daniel's presence was intoxicating, and every interaction felt charged with potential. Then came the day of the presentation to the board. My stomach churned with anticipation, a mixture of excitement and dread. I had spent countless hours preparing, rehearsing every word, every gesture, but now that it was finally here, I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. Would they see the vision I had, or would they dismiss it as just another fleeting idea? I could sense Daniel's confidence in me, but my own self-doubt crept in like a shadow. As we stood in front of the board members, I could feel Daniel's steady gaze on me. It was a lifeline, a reminder that I was not alone in this. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the moment. As I began to speak, I felt the energy shift in the room. The board listened, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue as I laid out my ideas. Each slide revealed not just numbers and projections, but a passion for change, a vision that could reframe our company's future. When I finished, the silence that followed was deafening. I glanced at Daniel, and the pride in his eyes gave me the courage to face the board's questions. One by one, they probed, challenged, and pushed back, but I stood my ground, fortified by Daniel's unwavering support. The discussion became a dialogue, a brainstorming session rather than an interrogation, and I could feel the tide turning in my favor. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the chairperson leaned back in his seat, a smile creeping onto his face. "I believe we have something here," he said, looking around the table. "It's bold, it's different, and it's exactly what we need to stay relevant." A wave of relief washed over me, and I turned to Daniel, who was beaming. In that moment, it felt as if the world faded away, leaving just the two of us amidst the chaos of corporate life. I had done it, but more importantly, We had done it together. As the board members clapped, I felt a rush of adrenaline, my heart racing with triumph and a hint of something deeper that simmered beneath the surface. After the meeting, Daniel pulled me aside, his expression a mixture of admiration and something else, something unspoken yet profound. "You were incredible," he said, his voice low and sincere. "You took a risk, and it paid off. I knew you could do it. Thank you for believing in me," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to tell him how much his faith meant to me, how it had reignited a spark I thought I had lost. But the weight of our history lingered heavily in the air, an unresolved tension that neither of us had dared to address. Days turned into nights, and our connection deepened. Each shared glance felt charged with possibility, every touch electric. We were walking a tightrope, balancing professional ambition with personal desire. I found myself drawn to him more than ever, yet the shadows of betrayal loomed large, reminding me of the fractures in his past. Then came the night of the company celebration, a lavish event where the board would formally announce the approval of our project. I wore a shimmering dress that hugged my curves, a reflection of my newfound confidence. As I stepped into the room, I caught sight of Daniel across the crowd. He was engaged in conversation, but when our eyes met, everything else faded away. I felt a magnetic pull toward him, and as I approached, I could see the admiration in his gaze. "You look stunning," he said, his voice low, sending shivers down my spine. The way he looked at me made me feel seen, appreciated in a way I had craved for so long. "Thank you. I could say the same about you," I replied, my heart racing. As the night unfolded, we mingled with colleagues, laughed with the board members. But it was in the quiet moments, when our hands brushed or when he leaned in to whisper something just for me, that the world around us faded. The air was thick with unsaid words, each interaction layered with a tension that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Eventually, I found myself alone with Daniel on the balcony, the city lights sprawling beneath us like a sea of stars. The night was cool, and I could feel the warmth radiating from him as he stood close. "This is just the beginning," he said, his eyes locked onto mine. "You've changed everything for this company, and in doing so, you've changed something in me too." His words hung in the air, heavy with promise, and in that moment, I knew we were standing at a crossroads. The past was a shadow behind us, but ahead lay the uncertainty of what we could become together. I took a deep breath, ready to leap into the unknown, ready to confront the feelings I had kept buried for too long. As I stood there, the city lights flickering like distant stars, I felt the weight of Daniel's words settle deep within me. He had changed everything for me, too. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions, each moment spent with him unraveling the tightly wound threads of my heart. The betrayal I had once felt was still a bitter taste on my tongue, but now it was intertwined with something more potent, something that whispered of hope and redemption. "Daniel," I began, my voice trembling slightly as I searched his eyes for understanding. "We can't just ignore what happened between us. I know we're both trying to move forward, but it's like this wall is between us, and I don't want it there anymore." He took a step closer, the space between us shrinking, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I never meant to hurt you," he replied, his voice raw with sincerity. "It was a mistake, one I regret every day, but what I feel for you is real. I need you to know that." My heart raced at his admission, the sincerity in his eyes making it impossible to look away. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that the man standing before me was not just the CEO who had betrayed my trust, but the person who had ignited a fire in my soul, someone who could make me feel alive again. "What if we tried?" I asked, my heart pounding as the words escaped my lips. "What if we didn't let the past define us? We could take things slow, rebuild what we had, and maybe it could be even better." He hesitated for a moment, his brow furrowing as he weighed my words. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the fear of falling again, but also the flicker of hope. "You're right," he finally said, his voice steady. "I don't want to lose you again. Whatever it takes, I'll fight for us." In that moment, it felt as if a dam had broken between us, the flood of emotions spilling forth. I stepped closer, closing the distance until our bodies were nearly touching. The air was electric, charged with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could feel his breath against my skin, warm and inviting, and I couldn't help but lean in, my heart racing as our lips brushed together softly. It was a kiss that spoke volumes, a promise wrapped in the tenderness of our shared history. My fingers tangled in his hair as his hands found my waist, pulling me closer, deepening the connection we had both feared to explore. In that instant, the world around us disappeared, leaving just the two of us suspended in time, lost in the intensity of the moment. When we finally pulled away, both breathless and dazed, I could see the shift in his expression. Gone was the uncertainty. Instead, there was a fierce determination. "We'll face whatever comes next together," he said, his voice resolute. "I won't let my past mistakes define our future." I nodded, feeling a swell of hope rise within me. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I could envision a future with him, not just as colleagues, but as partners in every sense. It wouldn't be easy. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but the strength of our connection gave me confidence that we could navigate it together. As we stepped back inside, the noise of the celebration enveloped us again, but I felt different. My heart was no longer heavy with doubt. It was light, buoyed by the promise of what lay ahead. I caught Daniel's eye across the room, and he smiled, a smile that spoke of shared dreams and uncharted territories. With each passing moment, I felt the invisible thread that had bound us all along tighten, a connection that was no longer fraught with apprehension, but filled with the possibility of love. I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, hand in hand, ready to embrace the future that awaited us, unafraid of the shadows of the past. The celebration swirled around us, but all I could focus on was Daniel. His presence was magnetic, pulling me closer even amidst the chaos. I could see the way his eyes sparkled under the dim lights, a mix of relief and excitement reflected back at me. For so long I had felt adrift, lost in the aftermath of his betrayal, but now I felt anchored, as though his resolve was a lifeline thrown into the turbulent sea of my heart. As we made our way through the crowd, I could hear snippets of laughter and the clinking of glasses, but it all seemed distant, muted by the drum of my heartbeat. I was acutely aware of Daniel's hand brushing against my back, guiding me, and I savored the warmth of his touch. Every step felt like a new beginning, each glance exchanged layered with the weight of our shared history and the promise of a fresh start. "Let's get some air," he suggested, a conspiratorial smile tugging at his lips. I nodded, and we slipped away from the bustling crowd, finding a quiet balcony overlooking the city skyline. The stars twinkled above, and the city below pulsed with life. But in this moment, it was just the two of us, suspended in our own world. Daniel leaned against the railing, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "You know," he began, his voice softer now, "I've spent so much time trying to build a perfect life, but I never realized what I was missing until I almost lost you." He turned to face me, the sincerity in his expression making my heart skip a beat. "I've been a fool, and I can't change the past, but I want to make things right. I want to be the man you deserve." His words wrapped around me like a warm embrace, and a tear escaped down my cheek. "Daniel, it's not just about the mistakes you made. It's about what we do now, how we choose to move forward." I stepped closer, feeling the pull of our connection intensify. "I need you to understand that I'm willing to fight for this, for us, but we have to be honest with each other. Always." He nodded, his expression earnest. "I promise. No more secrets." There was a weight to his words, a commitment that I could feel resonating deep within me. I wanted to believe in him, in us, but I also knew that trust was a fragile thing, one that needed nurturing. As we stood there, the city lights twinkling like stars beneath us, I could feel a shift within me. The fear that had once gripped my heart was starting to loosen its hold, replaced by a tentative hope. "What if we took a trip together?" I suggested suddenly, the idea bubbling to the surface. Just the two of us, away from everything. We could find a place to talk, to really figure things out. Daniel's eyes lit up at the suggestion, and I could see him contemplating the possibilities. That sounds perfect. Just us. No distractions. No expectations. I want to understand you. Everything about you and what you need from me. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I felt a smile breaking through the remnants of my uncertainty. We could go to that little cabin by the lake, I said, my voice filled with excitement. I used to go there as a child, and it's beautiful. Peaceful. I'd love that, he replied, a genuine smile spreading across his face. We'll create new memories, ones built on trust and understanding. The prospect of the trip filled me with a sense of exhilaration, a chance to step away from the shadows of our past and into the light of our future. Let's promise to be open, to confront our fears and doubts, I said, and he reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers. I promise, he vowed, his grip firm and reassuring. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. In that moment, I realized that this was more than just a trip. It was a journey toward healing. We were taking the first steps together, forging a new path where love could flourish. As the night deepened around us, I felt a sense of peace settle within me, a quiet assurance that we were finally on the right course, together. As the evening air wrapped around us, I felt the weight of the world starting to lift. The uncertainty that had consumed me for so long was beginning to dissipate, replaced by a sense of clarity. We stood on that balcony, two souls intertwined by fate, ready to explore the depths of our connection anew. I turned to Daniel, searching his eyes for reassurance, and found it in the warmth of his gaze. Are you sure about this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, afraid to shatter the fragile moment. About us? Daniel stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, he replied, his voice steady and filled with conviction. You're my anchor, the one thing I can't imagine living without. I was lost without you, and I won't let that happen again. His words ignited a fire within me, a spark of hope that had been dimmed for so long. I reached up, brushing my thumb against his cheek, tracing the lines of his jaw. I want to believe you, I murmured, feeling the weight of my own words. But it's going to take time. We have to rebuild what we lost. I understand, he said, his eyes reflecting a mixture of determination and vulnerability. I'm willing to put in the work to show you that I can be the man you need, every single day. I nodded, feeling a wave of emotion wash over me. The past was a scar that would always be part of our story, but as we stood there, I realized it didn't have to define us. Let's take it one step at a time, I suggested, my heart racing at the prospect of what lay ahead. No pressure, just us figuring things out together. Together, he echoed, and in that moment, the word felt like a promise. The city lights below twinkled like stars, vivid reminders of the beauty that surrounded us. I took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp night air, and felt a surge of excitement at the thought of our trip. How soon can we go? I asked, my pulse quickening at the idea of escaping the weight of our reality, even if just for a moment. Tomorrow, he replied without hesitation, a spark of enthusiasm igniting his eyes. I'll arrange everything. Just you and me, a world away from the chaos. Tomorrow, I repeated, the word hanging in the air like a sweet promise. I can't wait. As we lingered on the balcony, the night wrapping around us like a comforting blanket, I felt a sense of peace settle in my heart. Perhaps this was the turning point we both needed, a chance to confront the demons of our past and pave the way for something beautiful. The anticipation of our getaway grew with each passing moment, and as we stood there, I couldn't help but imagine the possibilities that awaited us. With every shared laugh, every whispered secret under the starry sky, I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. Do you remember the first time we met? I asked, a playful smile creeping onto my lips as memories flooded back. Daniel chuckled, the sound rich and warm. Of course. You were wearing that ridiculous hat. It was not ridiculous, I protested, laughing softly. It was stylish. Stylish, huh? He teased, raising an eyebrow. If you say so. Our laughter echoed into the night, mingling with the distant sounds of the city, and for the first time in ages, I felt light. The heaviness of our past began to fade, replaced by the promise of new beginnings. As we made our way back inside, hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to confront our fears, and to build a love that was resilient and true. Every step we took felt like a declaration of our commitment to one another, a vow to cherish the love that had been tested but never extinguished. Tomorrow, we would embark on a journey that would not only take us away from the noise, but also deeper into the heart of what we truly meant to each other. And as I glanced at Daniel, a smile playing on my lips, I knew that no matter what happened, I was ready to embrace the future together.